Hey guys, today I will be updating my prediction for the 2022 Senate elections, which have become more and more important to the Democratic Party as it looks more and more like they're going to lose the House after 2022, and the Senate really is the last place where they have a chance of at least controlling half of Congress. So with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris still going to be the president and vice president after 2022, the Democratic Party still only needs to retain their 50 seats to maintain their current Senate majority, while the GOP does need 51 seats. So the breakup of the Senate currently after the 2020 special elections is, of course, 50-50 after both Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock won their elections in the runoffs in Georgia, earlier last year. And so this 50-50 split really has been a problem for the Democratic Party, as even though they do control the U.S. Senate as of this point, if they all work together, they could pass, very many things. They could even abolish the filibuster. However, you do have two senators, one from West Virginia being Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, two of the more conservative states that Democrats have senators in, especially West Virginia. So these two senators really are blocking a lot of what the Democratic Party is trying to pass through Congress, Joe Biden's agenda, and that really is hurting the Democratic Party, who currently controls all of the U.S. government. They control both the legislative and executive branches. They don't really have too many liberal judges on the Supreme Court, but in terms of legislating, the Democratic Party has full control after the 2020 presidential election, but the Republicans, as of right now, they have retaken the lead in the generic congressional ballot polling, which basically asks people, which party they would generically support if no candidates were really involved. So, no specific candidates. So just, in terms of whether or not you would, prefer a Republican or Democrat, just generically. And this is very bad news for the Democratic Party, who typically underperforms the polls, the generic congressional ballot polling. And this is the first time the GOP has taken the lead in the generic congressional ballot since, Barack Obama left office in 2016 and Donald Trump was reelected, with both a majority in the House and the Senate. So this is definitely not good news for the Democratic Party. And with Joe Biden just being elected, history does tell us that 2022 will be a red wave year. That is probably just what is going to happen. You can see after almost every single presidential election. So this was what you saw in 2016, 2018. It was good for the GOP in the Senate after Donald Trump's first 2 years. However, the GOP did lose, by a lot in the U.S. House. Democrats won so many seats. They flipped so many districts in the House. So the Senate was actually okay for them. But on the House level, you will see that in 2018, the Democratic Party were able to take back the House of Representatives 235 to 220 in 2016. The GOP had 241. So this was a pretty big deal. And if you look at previous Senate elections, you'll see, of course, Barack Obama elected in 2008, 59 seats he won with in 2008. 2010, it dropped all the way down to 53. So after the first 2 years in office, the incumbent president's party typically does not do too well in the Senate elections. If you look at the election of 2000, you will see that even after the September 11 attacks, George W. Bush did actually win more seats in 2002, but that was a pretty special occasion, as of course 9/11 was still a pretty big thing and the country was a lot more united behind the incumbent president. 2004, they did even better, but of course, in 2006, after George W. Bush's re-election, you did see that the Republicans lost control. You can also look back at 1992 with the election of Bill Clinton, 57 seats in the Senate. This is definitely not what you would probably see in modern times. 1994, they lost the Senate. They lost 10 seats in the U.S. Senate just 2 years after Bill Clinton was elected. Republicans won all across the country. Richard Shelby somehow won more than 100% of the vote, but I'm just going to gloss over that. But they had wins in Washington, in Michigan, in Arizona, Maine. So really, the Republican Party will probably be able to do a lot better in 2022 than they did in 2020, just because of historical precedent. So all of these senators that were reelected in 2016 that aren't retiring will be up for reelection in 2022. So I'm going to start off by filling in these solid states on the map. Of course, all of these West Coast Democratic senators, Patty Murray, Ron Wyden, and Alex Padilla, going to be reelected in the state of Hawaii as well. And in Illinois, you have Tammy Duckworth, Chuck Schumer in New York. Vermont, Patrick Leahy is not going to be running for re-election, but whoever does replace him will become the only second Democratic senator in the state of Vermont's history, a state that has been in the union for, over 200 years. Patrick Leahy is the only Democrat to have ever been elected from the Senate there, because of course Bernie Sanders is an independent. In Connecticut, we have Richard Blumenthal and Chris Van Hollen in Maryland. We did see that poll recently with Larry Hogan beating Chris Van Hollen, but I don't think that's going to happen. Larry Hogan, of course, the incumbent Republican governor of the very Democratic state of Maryland. Larry Hogan probably will not be running he can't run for re-election for governor because of term limits, but he probably will not run for the Senate against Chris Van Hollen. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, I'm definitely going to have to change this categorization. I don't just think that Larry Hogan's going to win if he runs, because it is a lot easier to be elected governor, of a state if you're of the opposing party of what the majority in that state is, especially like a very Democratic state like Maryland. But being elected, as a Republican in such a Democratic state on the national level to a Senate seat is a lot harder than winning the governorship as a Republican. And so this will give the Democratic Party now 45 seats, and for the GOP, they have quite a few as well. So the GOP will be defending 20 seats in 2022, and we do have a change in Alabama. Richard Shelby, of course, will not be running for re-election in 2022, and so Mo Brooks had always been the frontrunner for this race for a very long time. Whoever wins this nomination essentially will win the Senate seat. You did see Doug Jones get elected in a special election a couple years ago as a Democrat, but he was swiftly defeated by 20 points by Tommy Tuberville in 2020. So Doug Jones did not have too long of a career in the Senate from the state of Alabama as a Democrat. But in 2022, Katie Britt now is the frontrunner, although she is far from, being too solid of a frontrunner in this race. Mo Brooks is still very much in this race, but at this point, Katie Britt is the new frontrunner, and I did think that was pretty notable, as Mo Brooks had been leading, all throughout the previous year. And so this puts the GOP up at 39. They will also have Rand Paul in Kentucky, Todd Young in Indiana, and in South Carolina, they will be winning with Tim Scott as well. I will also be including the state of Iowa. Chuck Grassley has announced that he will be running for re-election, so of course that is going to make this state very solid. The longtime U.S. Senator from the state of Iowa, who won by 25% last time, is not going to lose his re-election. And finally, in the state of Alaska, Lisa Murkowski is going to win her re-election. I do not think that she will lose. Earlier last year did look like she had a pretty good chance of losing to Kelly Tshibaka, the Trump-endorsed Republican candidate who is trying to run for the Republican nomination against Lisa Murkowski, who has been in the Senate now for almost 2 decades. However, Lisa Murkowski has won, challengers from the more conservative wing of the GOP. She is a lot more of a moderate, but Murkowski has defeated, Joe Miller twice, who represented, of course, the more conservative Republican wing of the party in Alaska. She even lost a nomination in 2010, but was able to win as a write-in candidate in that election against Joe Miller. So Lisa Murkowski, I think, will be very, very difficult to beat, and her betting odds are getting higher and higher by the day. So Alaska definitely going to be solid for the GOP. Now I'm going to move on and take a look at some states that I think both parties will almost definitely win, but I don't think the margins will be too solid. So starting off with the state of Missouri, I'm going to classify Missouri as likely for the GOP. Currently, Eric Greens and Eric Schmidt are in the battle for this nomination. I don't think it really matters who the Democratic nominee is, because they're not going to win. I think that Eric Schmidt will, of course, be a better candidate on the national level than Eric Greens, or not the national, but on the statewide level, not just within the party. But Eric Greens does do a little bit better within the GOP. He is a former governor who resigned in 2017 due to a sexual blackmail scandal, which even the Republicans, in the state endorsed, him resigning. But Eric Greens is now back, and he is trying to run, again, this time for the Senate. But him and Schmidt are pretty close in this race, but whoever ends up winning that nomination is going to win this seat. For the Democrats, I have Michael Bennet in the state of Colorado. I think Michael Bennet is going to be able to win his re-election. I don't think it will be too difficult, but Margin-wise, I don't think it will be anything too great. And in the state of New Hampshire, I do have Maggie Hassan winning her re-election. With Chris Sununu out of the race, there really is no strong challenger to Maggie Hassan. Kelly Ayotte, the former senator that Maggie Hassan defeated in 2016, also announced that she will not be running for any office in 2022. And Maggie Hassan is polling very well against the top 3 possible Republican candidates at this point in time, who are Chuck Morse and Donald Boldeau as the top 2. They're really the only ones with any large chance at this point. Chris Sununu, Kelly Ayotte, all are not going to run. And so I think that New Hampshire definitely made the Senate a lot easier for the Democratic Party in 2022, with Sununu announcing that he will not be running and instead will be running for re-election for another 2 years as governor of the state. And then I will also be giving now the GOP the state of Florida with a likely margin. I do think that Marco Rubio will be able to do very well in this race. He defeated Patrick Murphy by 7.7% in 2016. I do think he'll be able to defeat whoever runs against him. Probably Val Demings at this point. She has a very high chance at winning that nomination, but I don't think Val Demings really does stand a chance against Marco Rubio in 2022. And so this leaves us basically with these 7 states that we have left. I'm actually going to cut it down to 6. Ohio, I do think will go for the GOP. Tim Ryan currently is the Democratic frontrunner, and for the Republicans, currently Josh Mandel and J.D. Vance are in a pretty close race, along with Jane Timken as well. So this is going to be a pretty interesting race. I think that all 3 of these candidates have a very good chance at winning this nomination, and honestly, whoever wins this nomination will win the race in the end. So this is a pretty high stakes primary to represent Ohio, as Rob Portman, the incumbent senator, is retiring in 2022. So these retirements are definitely not helping the GOP, but I do think that they'll be able to hold on to many of the seats in which they have retirements in. And so this leaves these final 6 states, the Republicans and the Democrats, both at 47. I do think obviously that these are the most important 6 races. I think these will also be the closest 6 races, and the 6 races that will decide the makeup of the U.S. Senate after 2022. So I'm going to start off with the state of Nevada. I do not think Catherine Cortez Masto is going to win his re-election. When her re-election, she was first elected in 2016 to replace the retiring Harry Reid, who recently, unfortunately, just passed away. So Catherine Cortez Masto, with 47% of the vote, won in 2016 by a margin of 2.4% against Joe Heck. In 2022, she's likely going to go against Adam Laxalt. I don't think it will be too difficult for Laxalt to win. His family does have a long history in Nevada state politics, but I do think that Catherine Cortez Masto will not be easy to defeat, but I do think that at the end of the day, the GOP is favored, obviously, to win this race. Just because of the fact that the state of Nevada is not the most reliably Democratic state, and in a red wave year like 2022, Catherine Cortez Masto is not, too charismatic or too popular. She's very average at this point, so I don't think she'll be able to do too much to save her chances at winning re-election. However, in the state of Arizona, I will be giving this one to Mark Kelly, the incumbent Democratic senator first elected in 2020 in the special election. Mark Kelly winning 51% against incumbent Martha McSally, who was appointed by Doug Ducey to replace John McCain after McCain unfortunately passed away. So Mark Kelly, I think, will be able to win his re-election. He has been polling pretty well. I wouldn't say these are the most reliable polls, but he has been polling pretty well against all of his possible Republican opponents, who currently at this point are Mark Brnovich and Blake Masters. Those are the top 2. Doug Ducey will not be running for the Senate seat. He won't be able to run for governor in 2022 either because of term limits. He has definitely gotten on Trump's bad side, so I don't think he'll be running for anything too soon, because Doug Ducey did admit that Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. So this right here is a pretty close race, with Blake Masters catching up more and more, because Mark Brnovich really did look like he was going to be the nominee for a very, very long time. But Masters has been able to retake the lead for a little, or actually Blake Masters looked like he was going to be the nominee for a long time. Before this, it was Brnovich, but now Brnovich has retaken the lead, with Masters, of course, not too far behind still. But at the end of the day, I do think Mark Kelly will win his re-election in Arizona. In the state of Wisconsin, Johnson. I do think I will also again be siding with the incumbent here. This time it will be Ron Johnson, who won re-election in 2016. He did promise that that would be the last election he would run in, but he has since changed his mind and has officially declared that he will be running for a third term in 2022. He defeated Russ Feingold twice, the former senator from the state. As you can see, 2004, Russ Feingold was able to win his re-election. So Ron Johnson now 2010, 2016 defeated Feingold, who I believe actually won 3 times before this. Russ Feingold has run for the Senate 5 times now, but Ron Johnson I think will win his re-election. Mandela Barnes currently is the lieutenant governor of the state to Tony Evers. He will be running for the Senate nomination, so he will not be running again as lieutenant governor. I think this is a pretty terrible choice for him. I think that it will be very difficult for him to defeat Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, especially in 2022. So Tony Evers will be having to find a new lieutenant governor for his re-election, and so this gives the GOP now 49 seats. I will also be giving them the state of Pennsylvania. I do think that at this point, the state of Pennsylvania is not looking like what it should be for the Democratic Party, with the GOP currently expected to nominate David McCormick. Mehmet Oz did, go into this race, and at the very beginning, he was a pretty hyped up candidate. However, it has shown at this point that Mehmet Oz is not exactly who the Republicans in Pennsylvania really want. I think that he will probably be still a pretty big deal in this primary, but at the end of the day, I don't think he'll be able to win. I don't think Republicans like him that much either. Of course, Democrats like him even less. Jeff Bartos is really no longer in contention for this race anymore, although he was a frontrunner really for a very long time after Sean Parnell dropped out. Of course, Parnell was actually endorsed by Donald Trump previously. So this has been honestly a big mess of a race. You've had so many people just overtake each other for that frontrunner status, but right now it is David McCormick. We may see some changes in the next couple of months before the primary, but I think that things are starting to settle down. For the Democratic Party, John Fetterman and Connor Lamb are now neck and neck. Fetterman had been leading by a huge margin for a very long time, Fetterman being the lieutenant governor and Connor Lamb being the Democratic representative from a pretty Republican district in the state. So Connor Lamb being a lot more moderate, with Fetterman being more progressive. However, the unions in the state do support Lamb a lot, and that is a pretty big deal in Pennsylvania for a Democratic primary. So with a lot more union support for Connor Lamb, I do think Connor Lamb has a very good chance at winning this nomination. And I don't think that's exactly going to be the best thing, because John Fetterman does poll very well in the state. So I have Pennsylvania currently as tilt for the GOP. I also have the state of North Carolina as going for them as well. In the state of North Carolina, Ted Budd, Trump endorsed the frontrunner for the GOP nomination. The Democratic Party, Sherry Beasley, she is a justice on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And there's really not much to say. North Carolina really is not a state that I expect to go for the Democratic Party, especially in 2022. They could not even win in 2020 with Cal Cunningham against Tom Tillis. Tillis being very unpopular with Cunningham, I think probably would have won this race if not for his sexual, his cheating scandal on his wife that actually led to them being divorced. So I think that really ruined his chances. But Cal Cunningham could not even win in 2020. Sherry Beasley is not going to win in 2022. And finally, in the state of Georgia, I will also be giving it to the GOP. I do not think Raphael Warnock will win his re-election at this point. In 2020, the 2021 special election, he was able to defeat Kelly Loeffler, but Kelly Loeffler was an appointed senator. She was never elected to her position. She was appointed because of the retirement of Johnny Isaacson. However, for Raphael Warnock, he won in a race that was very hyped up, especially for the Democratic Party, because they had just won it on the presidential level, the state of Georgia, and he would become the first Democrat to represent the state in the Senate for decades. So this was a historic win for Raphael Warnock, but it was one that, was made possible because of just the huge amount of energy that was put into this race, especially by Democrats who really wanted to take back the Senate. 2022, I don't think the enthusiasm will be there for Warnock and, for him to win again. Of course, he ran in the special election, which is why he will be up for re-election again in 2020, where Jon Ossoff will not be up for re-election until 2026. So as of this point, I think just because of the fact that, Raphael Warnock is probably not going to be able to generate that type of hype for him again, I do think Herschel Walker, the presumptive Republican nominee at this point, is probably going to be able to win a Senate seat. So this is my updated Senate map for January of 2022. The Republican Republicans winning 52 seats, taking back control of the U.S. Senate, and the Democrats with 48. I mean, the numbers don't lie. The Democrats are not doing well at this point, but they do have many months to make up that difference. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below which party you think will win the Senate in 2022 and which calls on this map you agree and disagree with. Subscribe to my channel if you have not, and I will see you guys in the next video.